To order, if the clerk will call the roll.
Chairman Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy. Here. Counsel Milonazo. Two present.
Thank you. The reason that we're here today is to have a discussion, or to begin a discussion with a business improvement district and the consideration of a business improvement district in the downtown. And we have Attorney Mike Gallagher here to give a presentation on exactly what that district would look like.
Okay, thank you. It's touch now. This is a slideshow, Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Leahy, that we put together. It's pretty, as you'll see, elemental, but it's designed to give folks a basic understanding of what a bid's all about. This is an overview of the city of Lowell. The question that we have is why a bid for the city of Lowell? There have been several bids in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Bids go back, it's not a new thing. Bids go back to 1970, so they've been around for almost a half century. They started in Toronto, Canada. There are now about 1,600 bids throughout the United States, including 7 in Massachusetts. The legislation, Section 40O of the general laws, was passed in 1994. And thereafter, as you can see, if you can see the slide, bids developed in Springfield, in Hyannis, in Westfield, in Northampton, in Taunton, Downtown Crossing, and Amherst. So there are now 6 or 7 bids in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts spanning the state, big cities, small cities, densely populated areas, not so populated areas, et cetera. So there are a number of examples that we can draw on. I was speaking with the communications director for the downtown crossing bid recently. His name is Doug Meyer. He is an absolute advocate for bids and is more than willing to come up at any point to speak to the council or the manager or business people in the city of Lowell. But they've done a great job. Every year in the city of Boston, in the downtown crossing area, $5 million in assessment comes back to the district for the use of the district itself. They now have 40 ambassadors on the streets in the downtown crossing area. If you're downtown there now, you may bump into one of these folks who might be at any given time removing gum from the sidewalk or washing graffiti or handing out marketing brochures or directing tourists to their destinations. It's a phenomenal atmosphere down there. We hear stories, including a businessman who has roots in the city of Lowell, whose business was just outside the city, just outside the district itself. He requested that the district be enlarged to include his business so that he could be part of it as well, and is also himself a strong advocate for the system. What is a business improvement district? It's a revitalization tool. It's a rejuvenation tool where property owners themselves, this applies to property owners in the downtown, make the choice to initiate, manage, and finance services and/or enhancements to supplement baseline municipal services. So the idea is that the services that are being provided today may not be quite enough to meet the downtown needs, the specific needs of the downtown. And a bid is designed to assist enhancing or supplementing those through a modest self-assessment. The phrase that the folks who do this use is self-assessment through self-assessment. Property owners get together and they determine what their needs are, they prioritize those needs, and then ultimately they develop a plan, bring it before the city council. If it's approved, they then identify a series of a board of directors who ultimately decide, based upon input from other property owners, how the money will be spent. Every cent that comes in through the bid goes back to the bid. The function of the treasury at City Hall is simply to collect the monies, and then the money goes back fully, completely, 100% to the bid itself. That's what the statute requires. What services do they provide? It depends on the community. One of the beauties of the bid is that you can decide, as a group of property owners within the district, how you want to use that money that comes back. Elsewhere, they've used it for landscaping and beautification of the downtown, capital improvements, business development, maintenance, public safety, community services, economic development, planning, marketing, et cetera. There's a whole number of ways in which bid monies have been used depending upon the area in question. How are they financed? That's always one of the big concerns about bids. I said at the beginning that it's a modest self-assessment. The most under Chapter 40O that can be assessed is 0.5% of the assessed property value. 0.5% of the assessed property value. Now, you can also reduce that percentage. That's the most you can charge. In addition, depending upon the needs of your particular district, you can cap a charge for any individual property owner. So that, for example, in Hyannis, rather than go to 0.5%, Hyannis goes to 1/3 and caps the charge at $4,000. The most you can possibly be charged, regardless of the size of your property in Hyannis, is $4,000. Where would the bid be? Geographically, it must be in a continuous geographic area. So to your left or to your right, to my left, there is a map of the downtown area. What we did as a preliminary investigative group is to look at prior designations in the downtown area. We looked at the historic district, we looked at the neighborhood district, we looked at the cultural district. They all tracked roughly the same area of the downtown. We then took that map and went to the map that you'll see over to your left. And that is what we felt to be the most reasonable potential designation of the bid for downtown Lowell. As you can see, it goes over to Dutton Street and beyond, up to Father Morissette Boulevard, over to Bridge Street, down Central Street, and over to the east of Central Street as well. And through the assessor's office, Sue LeMay at the time very generously donated a fair amount of her time to identify building owners, property owners in that district, and what the assessed valuation was at the time. And given the assessed numbers that she was able to come up with back at that time, if you took 0.5% under the statute, the most that you can, that would return approximately $600,000 every year for the use of the business district itself. A phenomenal monetary boom to the downtown area. In order to ensure that the district conforms to the statute, 75% of the land must be zoned for commercial, retail, industrial, or mixed use. So as part of our analysis of that particular geographic area, we determined that in excess of 75% of that land was zoned or used for those purposes. How is a bid formed? There are 4 phases. The first phase is the phase we're in now. I want to emphasize that this is a very preliminary phase. Nothing's been decided. All we're doing right now is investigating whether it makes sense to proceed. Does it make sense for the community? Is there political and private support? One of the reasons we've come before you today is to find out whether there may be political public support for this effort. It's critical. As you'll see as we go through the process, if you don't have the support of the governing body, you're not going to get a bid regardless of the interests of the property owners. Phase 2 is the outreach process. And we've been starting down that road. We've developed some brochures, we've developed some fact sheets, that kind of thing, that ultimately, if we decide to go down this route, can be distributed to building owners in the area as we move forward. We've also identified a number of individuals from the state level and those who've done it at the 6 or 7 other communities who've expressed a willingness to, on their own dime and on their own time, to come into Lowell and to sit with groups, big or small, for the purpose of telling them how they did it in their community and what a bid meant for their particular area. A plan is then developed after some visioning sessions with the building owners that would consist of the geographic boundaries, budgets, fees, and management. So obviously, this is a process which they say typically takes anywhere from 18 to 24 months. After the bid plan is developed, you then have to, under the statute, file the plan with the municipality. So all of you would get a copy of that plan. The plan never gets to you in the first place unless 60% of the property owners, representing at least 51% of the assessed value within the bid, have signed on. So it's absolutely essential that you get substantial buy-in from the property owners in the area. There is then a public hearing and ultimately a vote by the City Council on whether to accept or reject the bid. And then the final process is where the bid board, the board of directors elected by the property owners, from the property owners, made up of property owners, they now have the authority to manage the monies that are collected or delegate that to a professional manager. A number of these bids are professionally managed. Why not a bid for Lowell? One of the things we found out in looking at this was that throughout the country, the federal government and a lot of nonprofits, from national parks to state parks to cultural institutions, et cetera, participate in the bid by returning sometimes monies, but more often in-kind contributions. And this is a statement from the General Services Administration Good Neighbor policy supporting bids. Downtowns are the economic engines of cities and serve as historical, cultural, governmental, and transportation centers, all of which are true about the downtown of Lowell. They have a variety of amenities and contain tremendous investments in buildings, infrastructure, and public spaces, also true about the city of Lowell. Therefore, maintaining and enhancing downtowns is smart for business, beneficial to citizens, and a sensible and efficient use of a region's resource. What is proposed with respect to, for example, in our instance, the university, the community college, the national park, the nonprofits downtown, is entering into memoranda of understanding with them so that they participate as active and willing players in this bid effort as well. That's worked, for example, in Amherst with the University of Massachusetts. And with all of our public players here who have been so generous to the city of Lowell, it seems to us that it would make a lot of sense for them to be part of the process. In terms of why a bid for the city of Lowell, there are several rationales that make sense. The first is that it's cost effective. Unlike malls, regional malls, where they have common area charges, so that every store owner has to pay something that benefits everyone. That's not true in the downtown. To a certain extent, unavoidably, downtown business owners are islands, and we're looking to move them to the continent, so to speak, so that everyone shares resources for the common benefit of everyone. In that way, this becomes a very cost-effective process. You're investing in your own property, and that will hopefully lead to, and according to what others have told us, will lead to an increase in the value of that property, among other things. Secondly, it's flexible. You can modify the way you want to do it depending upon your needs in a given year. Third, it makes for a stronger downtown and enables you to compete against regional malls in the area. Fourth, the downtown has an advocate, so that instead of hearing on occasion from this business owner or that business owner, you're hearing from the whole of downtown in one voice. Fifth, it's predictable. The funding comes in every year, so that rather than have an instance where federal monies or state monies or whatever the source may be don't come in a given year, this assessment is going to continue unless and until the bid is dissolved. So you can count as a business owner on, in this instance, several $100,000 coming back to the district every year. It's also proven. We've heard from folks in Weston, Mass. We've heard from folks at Downtown Crossing, Taunton, Hyannis. Every one of them has advised us that what they've seen is an uptick in property values, in excitement, in energy in the area, and so on. And finally, it's stable. Regardless of the changes in the political winds, who might be sitting in whatever seats, this is something that's going to be constant under the statute, again, unless and until the business district is dissolved. By the way, this is not something that becomes permanent once you vote it in. It can be by legislation. I think it's 40O Section 10 amended. So if you want to change the way you do things, you can do so, assuming you have the votes of the property owners. You can also, within a certain period of time, dissolve the business improvement district. So it's not something that once you commit to it, you can't amend or even dissolve at some later point. So that is just a little introduction to what a business district, improvement district's all about. As I say, we're only in a very preliminary stage. Nothing has been done beyond some investigation into the potential. We have reached out to some other communities. We have a number of exemplar memoranda of understanding that we've developed. So we're sort of ready to go, but we appreciated your invitation, Councilor Kennedy, to come here and give you a sense of what we've done and where we think we could go with it.
Thank you. I think that no matter where you live in this city, everybody that lives here has an opinion of the downtown. They have an opinion of what they think about it. They have an opinion of what they think should happen to it. And I think that, at least in my opinion, what you said about everybody acting as an island is very, very true. And I think that's almost the primary problem with the downtown. And if the downtown is going to move forward, that's something that has to change. And so the idea that having something like this would change those islands into a continent, to me, is a very positive step. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think Councilor Belanger had a motion on recently asking that a group be set up. And I think what we have downtown are probably 3 or 4 different groups, but there's no unified group. And this would almost do this all on its own, because everybody that would be involved in this would have a vested interest in this. My understanding of 40O is that every year there would be a board of directors, that the bid would be run by a board of directors, and the board of directors would be comprised of property owners downtown, and that they would construct a budget every year. and that budget would then have to be approved by the city council. Am I correct that so far?
Can I just add to that, Counselor? I'm assuming this mic is on. The city would also have to basically agree to a minimum maintenance provision so that the city would have to define what its expenditures are in the downtown. Snow removal, maintenance, whatever you're already spending, so that there's some reassurance to the property owners that if they approve this, their funds, in fact, will not be replacing what the city was spending, so that they have some guarantee that this would be in addition to. But yes, then they would provide you with the budget.
And you know what? I think that's absolutely important because it's, certainly we're not doing this in order to try to save money. We're doing this in order to try to improve the downtown. So I don't think that anybody on this city council would have an interest in using this money to supplement the existing budget, municipal budget. I think that's not the purpose here. My understanding too of 40O is that at any point, 51% of the property owners could vote to dissolve the bid. And what's also occurred to me during your presentation is that while we're talking about this now for the Central Business District, this might also be a good idea for several of the local business districts. The Couple Square area, for instance, Bridge Street, and maybe some others would probably benefit from this. So with that, Councilor Leahy, do you have anything to?
Thank you. I think this is a good idea to explore. I've actually had a conversation with Mr. Gallagher years ago about something like this. I don't think I knew the name at the time or called it a bid, but so I think it's a good start, and I think it's a good way to improve the downtown. Like you said, we're only in the first stages, so we'd have to define the map and where we want it to go out to, reach out to. But I think it's a good start, and I think it's worth exploring. On many occasions, I've asked some of the business owners, don't you guys have a group that gets together and comes down to City Hall to explain what you might want to help your business in particular? But so I think this is a very good start, and I think it's something that we need to explore. But obviously, looking at the numbers, it depends on what everybody can afford too. So I see some numbers that, we have to get a comfortable contribution number that people can afford every year. So
I think if I could respond to that, one of the important reasons I think we're before this subcommittee now is that Michael and I have been talking for several years about this idea and doing some of the research, and we need to start building consent among the property owners and going out and meeting with them. And it didn't seem to be in anybody's interest for us to begin that process without the council knowing what we're doing out there, because inevitably you're going to hear from some of them. And we wanted to make sure you knew what a bid was and what the definitions of a bid were and how it would work, so that we can start having these meetings with property owners. I think we've done it sporadically, but we haven't had large-scale meetings yet, and that's what we probably need to do over the next 3 or 4 months. So, again, our intent, I think, tonight is to just let you know, in fact, what this process is, what a bid is, so that if you receive any phone call, you have some information.
I just wanted to add that, I think this is a great start, and I do want to add that, I think it was even last Sunday, I was downtown, and I saw that we had crews during the weekend. So we have a crew out there Saturday, and I think it may have even been Sunday morning, that we have people in the downtown area picking up garbage and cleaning up. So I think that's a good start on our side too. So thank you for doing all the work, and look forward to moving on with this.
Council?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to thank Mike Gallagher for coming in today. That was an outstanding presentation where I like to think I already had a good understanding of how a bid works, and now I have an excellent understanding on how the bid works. And Mike, thank you for your participation and being proactive in the downtown, and also a thank you to Jim Cook for the Lowell plan. You've been a great partner of the city for many years, and downtown would not be in the shape it is today without you. So thank you for what you're doing as well. But I think this is definitely something that's worth exploring. You know, it is a special fee. It's not a tax, it's an additional fee. I understand that. And the sentiment out there is the commercial tax is double, and you know, some property owners aren't all that pleased with the tax rate here in the city. But however, you know, there is not a lot of additional taxpayer funds to go around. And that's not only in Lowell, that's throughout the country, to do what we'd like to do, and not only in the downtown, but throughout the city. And, you know, we're in business to make money. The downtown, it's a business community, and from there, we all understand that it takes money to make money. Now, I'll give you an understanding that the taxes annually on my building are approximately $7,000. So in this, again, if it's 1/2 of 1%, but as Mike explained, that could get lower. It can't exceed 1/2 of 1%, but you can lower it. We're talking about $350 annually. For a business, that's not a lot of money. And for the gain, if everybody does it, we're talking $600,000. If everybody, again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but this is the potential here of what could happen. That could be used for public safety, for park benches, for planters, for cleaning, for advertising, for better lighting in the downtown. I mean, it's so dark down there. I hear that over and over again. So there's so many things we can do with this money that would be beneficial and help building values too. Each business value go up and the building value goes up in hindsight as well. So I certainly think this is well looking into. There are some challenges here, there's no two ways about it. It's a strictly commercial, I know there are many residents downtown, and some of them are in the audience tonight. Residential tax rate remains the same. It's strictly for commercial, industrial, and whatnot. But it's something definitely that there's a need for. It's not a lot of money per building, but collectively, it is a lot of money. So I commend those involved for bringing this forward, and it's non-binding at the same time. If it does, you know, there's a long way to go, you know, it can always be reversed if it doesn't work. But I've seen many cities and towns have had great success with this. So I would like to take it to the next step. I'm only one vote here, one counselor, but I would like to see some public forums on this that can be arranged from the city and Mr. Gallagher and Jim Cook. Let's have some dialogue on this. Let's leave it to the owners. See if they're willing to participate in this, to enhance their property values. That's the end result. One of the challenges I see is that, you know, every property owner is not the business owner. So I'm concerned as how, too, they're going to take this. Well, you know, if they're going to pass it along to the business or basically say to them, if you want it, you're going to have to pay for it. I'm not. So, but nonetheless, still worth looking into, no doubt about it. But that's one challenge I see. But the business themselves should take it upon themselves to really look into this, because it's for them. It's not going to be used for snow plowing or anything else that the city already pays for. It is strictly for downtown improvements and enhancements. So it's how we sell it is the bottom line here. So I like it. I like the concept. You know, we're trying to move downtown forward, and we need to look at everything and not discount anything. So this is a good start. Again, I'd like to see it, some public forums, at least one by the end of this calendar year, which I think we can achieve. Let's get it out there. Let's see how well it's received. So thank you again, gentlemen, for presenting this evening, and that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Kennedy. I want to thank Mr. Gallagher and Mr. Cook for coming before us, you know, to make this presentation. It's quite interesting, you know, being new to the city council. One of the things I would say to you at first would be, actually, we as a city council should be providing all of this for you anyways. But that would require raising taxes, and I think all of you know it's a national problem going before the public to raise taxes. And no one wants to do that. But I think no one wants to do it because sometimes they don't feel that they have that much control of the tax raise that's happening. So what you're presenting us is an opportunity for business people to collectively work together to come up with a plan that they believe in, that they want to support. So I think this has a lot of merit. As far as the city council, I think we have to work with the city manager to assist you in this, to be sure that, the information that you require from the city is there and readily available, and that as a group, a political group, that we do support this, and that we also, in many ways, could assist this in happening. I think when, what happens, a lot of us have been hit with is transparency in government. And this actually is a model that I like, because what it is, it still is government working, but what government is doing is allowing the business people to collectively come together to make a plan and carry it out. So you've got my support in this. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Michael. And Michael, let me first say that you and Jim did an outstanding job with this idea. Ideas are always welcome. It's healthy. It's healthy to have an idea. And there's nothing wrong with exploring possibilities of what could happen, and maybe they will happen. And there are still, it's in its infancy, so a lot of decisions have not been ironed out yet, which Councilor Belanger said something very interesting to me, because I'm concerned, is the building owner or the business owner the one responsible for the fee? I don't know that yet. There's still a lot of questions here, and that's okay, that's okay. And my other question would be, what role in this bid decision in terms of this district being established, what role did the downtown residents have in this phase, in this formula? I like to include them. They live there, so I want to hear what they have to say. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea or a good idea. Everything here is healthy to get to the final analysis of this. But I want you to know that my decision rests completely with what the people that it affects the most, what they say, what they think. That will be my decision to say it's a good idea and I support it. I can't say that right now, but that's not saying I won't support it. What I'm saying is my decision rests with those that are affected the most. I also want to know that if there is a business or a building owner or a business owner that does not buy into this, how is this affecting his business, or what do you do in that case? So there's many questions here. This is very, very healthy. I did make a statement one time before, and I said, if we're having all this trouble in the downtown, and wouldn't the downtown businesses come together and hire their own probably couple of police? This would be the thing that would actually do that. And I know, and I can equate this to another entity here in the city. I have a passion for the seniors and having good things happen for them. We have a state-of-the-art senior center. I don't suppose that our budget could pay for a lot of things and amenities that we need down there. So we have the Friends of the Council on Aging, and this is strictly the money aspect of it. We have like $125,000 in our account. We're very proud. We do pay all the tax, all the fees that are needed for that with the state. Just to hold a raffle, just to hold a bingo, that money comes back into that fund, but we have to pay the proper entity, and we're doing this by the book. So I can see where this is a good thing. You see what I'm saying? So yes. In a smaller scale, we do that there. So I know the benefit of it. I see it, but I want to thank you for coming forward with this idea, because we do the bidding of the public, and we don't always think of the big scale here, and you did that. So I thank you very much for this input. It's very interesting to me. But what I saw on this screen here today, I would like a copy of that if you have like a hard copy paper-wise. I would like that just so I could explore it a little bit better. So thank you very much for all your time and hard work in preparing this. Thank you.
Thank you,
My-
Counselor.
My understanding is that the assessment would be to the property owners.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that the retail tenants would, those costs could be passed on to them through increased rent, but it would be the property owners. I mean,
Yes.
their incentive for the property owners would be that downtown would become a more desirable place, which would then create more demand for the rents, and so it would go like that. And so, I understand that, but Councilor Mercia does bring up a very good point. What would you do about, how do they handle delinquent members of the improvement district? In other words, let's say that we get 80% of the people to buy in and 20% don't. Well, what happens to that 20%? And if it goes along for a couple of years and everybody's paying, and then all of a sudden somebody falls upon hard times, for instance, we recently had a troubled property on Market Street, and I can't imagine that person would have paid. So how does that get handled?
Well, I think you would use the same mechanisms you have available to you for delinquent property owners today. I can tell you that I spoke recently, as I mentioned, with the communications director for the downtown crossing bid, and he said what he has seen over the last number of years is a reduction in delinquencies as they move forward. Because what happened, what you have said actually happened, and that is that people get energized and tenants get excited and businesses prosper and so on. As a result, there's less resistance to it. So it is property owners, Councilor Mercia, who make the payments. As to residents, if I may, Councilor Kennedy, there are different ways of engaging with residents. We have a very active group of residents in the downtown, seniors and not-so-seniors throughout the downtown. They have been great advocates for the downtown, and some of them are here today. There are different ways that communities have brought in residents. In some instances, they actually charge $85 a year, for example, or $100 a year per tenant. It's a very modest amount. But regardless, for this district, it would be absolutely critical, given how many residents we have and how active they are, to not include them as part of the effort. And so they would be very much part of the effort going forward. And what happens downtown would affect them. Let me just say, I was in Washington, the state of Washington, this past summer, and went to a smallish town who had something like a business improvement district. They had 40 murals throughout the downtown, beautiful murals depicting the history of the town. They had public furniture everywhere, great green spaces, wonderful flowering areas, supplemental police patrols, benches everywhere, a really energized retail market. The town itself is about 100 years younger than the city of Lowell. It's got none of the great, beautiful architecture that we're so accustomed to in the downtown. Almost 50 buildings in the downtown, each with its own history, and great facades, cobblestone streets, all of the amenities that we're so accustomed to, and I think sometimes take for granted, they don't have. But even absent those, they got together and they developed a plan, and they energized the community, and it's a great place today as a result. We have all of that infrastructure. We have all of that history. All of you know that. I know that even more than I ever knew it, despite the fact that I've lived here for over 50 years until I moved downtown. So I now walk the cobblestone streets, or run them, or try to run them every day. And I now, sweep the sidewalk in front and have a garden downtown. It's phenomenal living downtown and working downtown and having a business downtown, in part because of all of what you had to do. But you also, living and working downtown, see the potential of what it could be. Increasing our police patrols, because there is some occasional vandalism. Even making the green spaces more attractive. Public art, public sculpture, continuing the effort we started some years ago with public sculpture. Benches on Middle Street as you make your way down, doing some of the curb appeal things that the manager has talked about. It can be an even more attractive area than it already is. And that would include, obviously, re-energizing the tenants and the retail business owners, et cetera, downtown. So the potential of this effort is incredible for the future of the downtown area. And we're very grateful for the invitation. We're very grateful for the kind words and the preliminary support. I emphasize that this is a very early stage. Everything is open for discussion. If anyone on the street is saying this has been decided, that's not accurate, because nothing has been decided. If we don't have buy-in by at least 60%, it never happens. It won't happen, regardless of how supportive the manager and the council and others are. So the key is for us now to sit down in information sessions with growing groups of business owners to lay out the facts, to show them what's happened elsewhere, to paint a vision of where we could be, and to see whether or not they will be persuaded. The goal really is persuasion, because as you say, Counselor, if 60% buy-in and there's a vocal 40% minority, it probably isn't going to work either. So our goal really is to find some consensus, to build consensus by showing what can be done, what has been done, and what we could together, how we could together forge a rejuvenated downtown in this city.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I think Mike just reiterated what I was going to say, is this has to start with the property owners. So while the council can get information on it and the administration, if there's not that buy-in, and again, 60% is the minimum, that wouldn't work. We like considerable buy-in. If they're not buying in, it won't come back to the city council. So you can't impose it on them. It's the other way around. They come to you and then hope that you would support it. And up to several years ago, one of the reasons this really didn't come forward in the past, although it's been known and discussed for some time, is that up to several years ago, there was an opt-out clause. So while things would be going well, a business or a property owner could just decide they don't want to participate anymore. And that's, I think, an answer to Councilor Mercier's question, what if somebody doesn't want to pay? I believe the Mass Legislature, and I believe our city manager may have been down there at the time, but that opt-out clause has changed, and they modified that. So now, once a bid is created, it's like any other assessment that they would get. If they don't pay, the city serves them notice that they're delinquent or they're late. Because in the past, again, we need considerable buy-in, but in the past, I think, with, going back 10 years or so, there weren't a lot of property owners downtown. There were a couple that owned a lot of property. And so this could not have been really considered at that point. Now we've got a lot of people coming in and investing in the city, and where the city's, spent some considerable time coming up with creative ways to address some of the issues in the downtown, it seemed appropriate to bring this forward now.
I really like the part where the private nonprofits and the university and Middlesex Community College would also be able to participate. I think that's important and proper that they do. Does anybody else have anything? Do we have anybody that wants to add anything from the?
My name is Bill Lipchitz. I'm with, among other things, with the Center City Committee and Community Teamwork. And I've been looking at bids for a long time, and I've gone to a lot of seminars and state-supported, meetings that talk about it, and I met people who run bids in various parts of the state. And the things that the bid can do is really amazing. There are a lot of things the bid could do when they have a staff and some money that is dedicated just for downtown. And for example, I was looking around at the problem with jaywalking right now. There seems to be a lot of jaywalking happening downtown because of the change of traffic, I'm not sure, but whatever. But if we had ambassadors, as Michael had talked about, who are there downtown all over the place, they could help control that jaywalking. They could direct people to the right crossings and just have a presence downtown that would make a difference. you know, and it was mentioned that, you know, the city has a certain amount of money they put into downtown already, whether it's, you know, like, you know, snow plowing or maintenance and cleaning and so on. And so you set up a system that says, okay, the city spends X number of dollars, and the bid could say, well, even though you're doing, for example, cleaning up, we could have street cleaning done ourselves. If you use the money for more police, that's what we want downtown. We need more police downtown, so you spend the same amount of money, except you spend it on police and not on street cleaning, that kind of thing is an example of what could be done. The city, you know, maybe we need better lighting from the city, and yet we could take over, for example, well, I say we, the bid could take over things like some of the events, the parade, the Winterfest could all be done through that kind of process, you know, and then leaving that money the city is spending on that to do other things. So those are some of the advantages. I think another big advantage of the bid would be targeted marketing for the downtown. You know, a concentrated effort that we know is funded every year that would, you know, promote the downtown in various ways. That right now, a lot of the advertising for Lowell is really more general, more to the tourist kind of thing. But I think that, you know, that kind of marketing could be really helpful in downtown. And they could be doing recruiting of businesses, they could be doing, you know, sales events, all kinds of things. You almost look at it like the downtown is now a mall in the sense of, for example, let's have all the stores open at the same time, for the same hours, the same nights, whatever that is. It could be, a lot of that could be done, it seems to me, with a bid. So another advantage. And all of that economic activity is what's going to help the property owner who's already putting the money in to recoup some of his money in terms of more value and more vibrant downtown, which is going to lead to higher rents and that kind of thing. So that's my suggestion.
So, we've had this subcommittee meeting. I think it might be a good idea to have another meeting with, and maybe invite some people from some of the other communities that have these, have bids in place. But in the meantime, what do you think we need to do in order to initiate or to get moving with the private sector, to get the property owners going along? Should there be a steering committee, or is that something that the Lowell plan could head up, or how can we proceed?
Well, we're definitely going to be involved in reaching out to property owners. And we wanted to make sure that the property owners didn't feel that this was the city sort of imposing it on them, because it's quite the opposite. And so again, we intend to have a series of meetings. I know Mike has talked to a number of property owners, and I have, but we haven't had a group meeting yet. We intend to do that. I think the fact that the city council and the city administration is aware of what we're doing, in general, would be supportive if, in fact, the business owners think it's a great idea. I think that's what's important right now. I just think that we've got a lot of homework to do and a lot of legwork to do, and we can keep you posted. You know, I mean, we can come back here and fill you in on how those meetings are going. You may hear from some of the property owners as we go along that like it or don't like it, because ultimately the final say rests here before it goes to the state. But I'm not sure right now, other than some just support. If we need information on, I think the Chief Assessor, Sula May, has been very helpful in getting us some information. You have been helpful tonight. Giving us this forum. The city manager's been at the Lowell Plan meetings where we've discussed this. So I think there's a feeling out there that the city would be partners with us. But I think the selling of this has to come from the private sector to the private sector.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, how's that going to happen? Who's going to head that? You know, when we all leave here this evening, who's gonna make that happen tomorrow? Who's gonna get started on that? And is this something that should be done, let's say, with group sessions, or should it be done one-on-one in order to try to build a consensus before the group meets? I mean, have you thought about a strategy on how to do that?
Well, we know that it probably shouldn't happen in a full-scale meeting, because the issues are such that we're not sure how productive that would ultimately be. So what has been recommended to us by others who have done it successfully is almost a block-by-block kind of meeting, so that you bring in folks from the outside, they're not just listening to us, but folks who've done it, and gradually build consensus. I know in one instance, they had a couple of retirees who had a lot of time on their hand and were totally dedicated to the effort and knocked on every door, went door to door for months to get support, and they ultimately got it, and it worked out very well for that community. I wish I had the luxury of doing that right now. A lot of us don't. But so in answer to your question, Counselor, I would think that we'll probably sit down and talk about a strategy, but my guess is that we'll be talking about doing it almost literally block by block. If you look at the proposed geographic area, there really aren't all that many blocks when you boil it down. And of course, that may not be the final configuration, but it kind of makes sense. So we're not talking about, scores of meetings. I would think that in the course of doing 10 or 15 meetings, we'd be able to reach everyone during that time.
Okay.
And that the goal really is to get a number of property owners who can be advocates for the effort, so that they can then reach out to their fellow property owners for the purpose of encouraging them to keep an open mind about that process. That's really what we're talking about right now, keeping an open mind. And so we're going to move ahead as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
And we've agreed to provide some marketing materials as we go out and meet with property owners, that we have something to give them.
Okay, thank you. Council Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I think that's a good strategy on how to go about this. And Councilor Mercia said it very well when, we're going to represent what the property owners and the businesses want to do. It starts with them and it ends with them. We got a good understanding on how this works this evening, but what we're not going to achieve is how well it's going to go over with property owners and business owners. They're not here tonight. So we need to begin an outreach program, which I think was started to achieve tonight, with city officials, the Lowell Plan, and Attorney Gallagher, to start the outreach. Hopefully by the end of the year, we can get one block or two together and get a general census to see how well this is received, and should we go forward from there. So if it's the block-by-block mentality, if they think that's best, then I'm all for it. But I know it's tough to get everybody together in the downtown on one particular evening. Although we did have some success with it during the business summit, where a large number of businesses did show up on a Monday evening back in September. That was very successful. So we got to begin the dialogue. That's all we can do to see how this goes over, and it's up to them. What the census is between the businesses and the owners, they're paying for this. It's up to them. So, but we need to begin this dialogue very soon.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
One of the things about this is that it's really hard for a property owner to make a thoughtful and informed decision without knowing how much it's going to cost them and what they're going to get for that. So that, and without having that information, it's hard for them to measure the value of doing something like this. And so one of the things that we did was to ask that the assessors come and try to give us just a little summary of what this would mean to the property owners. And so Susan LeMay is here, and maybe you could speak to that.
Well, what I had to work with was that map and the properties on that map, which was from May of 2013. And so what we did is we took it and we took a half of that 1%. And, hold on one second. If we were going to use the half of the 1%, it would have added like $2,700 a year to each of the properties. If we were going to use the 0.025%, it would add like $1,300 a year. That is a separate tax bill that would go out. It's not tacked on to a tax bill. It's a separate bill, and since we bill quarterly, it would go out quarterly, so it would be broken into 4 bills a year. Again, that is from 2013. It is not a bill or a value that would be set today, which would be not set today because I'm in the middle of setting a value, so these would change annually, and even quarterly, depending on what time of the year it is. So that's the only way that I can give it to you is based on 2013.
Okay. And so the amount that would be raised would be, what would be the total amount? Is that
Well, based on
300,000?
2013, we would have raised close to $600,000 if all had paid. There are
Okay.
222 properties based on that map.
And does that include residential? Did you include residential properties in there?
There are no residential included in that.
Okay.
We took out all the residential in that entire area, and we took out all exempts as well. That's strictly commercial.
Okay, so that if we had participation from the university and from the community college, then it would be even higher?
Yes,
that
that would be
right?
higher.
Okay, okay, and so that's quite a bit of money, isn't it, for the downtown? I would think we'd be able to have a substantial impact with something like that.
Well, for that year, it would have been close to 600,000.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you.
No, not in that regard, no.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So see what we have here? We have the team already in place. We have the Lowell plan, we have our city assessor, the planning department, and importantly, we have a newspaper. We have a reporter over there. So if he puts together a wonderful analysis of what just transpired at this very informative meeting, and hopefully the business owners will read that article, then we have a plan already in place. So I think the teamwork is crucial here. So the reporter does get my message, right? Yes. So that's a good start right here, so that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manager, do you have? Okay. So going forward then, would it make sense to maybe schedule another meeting for December, 2 months from now?
Sure.
And see where we are then, and would that is that adequate time to meet with at least some of the?
Yeah, that's, trying to think, that's actually quicker than you think. November's in 2 weeks, so.
January?
December can be a busy month. What about? Middle of January? Okay. All right, so why don't we do that then?
To the extent, I don't know if it's a reasonable suggestion or not, but to the extent that you might have available to you any interns or anyone like that who you might be able to lend to us for this purpose, because it's a time-intensive effort in order to reach out to people. I don't know whether that can be done. We had the good fortune to have a couple of interns help us out early on in the process, but going forward, interacting with business owners, setting up meetings, scheduling conferences, that's something that we could benefit from a little assistance with. So I don't know how or why, or rather how that can be done, but to the extent anyone may have that kind of a resource, that would be hugely helpful.
Well, maybe we'll discuss that with the city manager and the mayor, and maybe between the two of them, they can come up with some intern time to donate. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to add to this?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
I just asked if you had anything to add, and what Attorney Gallagher asked for was maybe some volunteer intern time. And so I said, well, maybe between the city manager and the mayor's office.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I have to tell you, we have been very fortunate working with UMass and having a regular routine of interns coming out of the office. And I think this would be an excellent opportunity for for students to come in and get some good experience. So why don't we do that? And, between Middlesex and the university, they're consistently looking for, they want to send us interns, and sometimes we just don't have enough of projects. So I think that's a great idea, and we can certainly find work for them to do.
We might be able to get you an army of interns, you know?
It might be,
More the merrier.
yeah, and I think this is great real-life experience, being a former intern myself, right?
You were a very good one, but I would say that we've had great luck, like you said, Mr. Mayor, with UMass Lowell. As a matter of fact, they just had the drug court open in Lowell District Court, and we were able to get 4 interns from the criminal justice program at UMass Lowell to volunteer at the new drug court. So I'm sure we could find some interns that would like to get into this project.
That would be a great help.
Okay. Does anybody else have
Mr.
anything to
Kennedy?
add?
Oh. Mr. Kennedy?
Council Samaras.
No, I agree. The one thing with the interns, I'd only ask that you, Ms. Gallagher, and Mr. Cook, come up with some outlines as to what you need regarding this particular thing. I think the university would, I think you'd have a lot more people than you'd expect applying for those positions, because they could see something, tying into their own future. But if you could do that type of an outline, I would also include the high school for doing some of the basic work that has to be done. But if you can come up with that plan, I think we could help you, with that. It would work out very well.
We'll do so. Thank you.
Okay, if nobody has anything else, thank you very much, Mr. Cook, Mr. Gallagher, for coming today. Mr. Lemay, thank you very much for your report, and we'll meet at the middle of January.
Thank you,
Okay,
Council.
thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second it?
Okay. All in favor, all opposed, meeting's adjourned.
Aye.